All right, it's the Q&A time, guys. So, if you would line up at the microphones, and we're going to go microphones in order. Remember, one question each, and try to not ask spoilerific questions. We're going to do this for a whole hour, all right, guys? So, I'm going to try to get as many questions as we can, and then after that, reading time. So, I actually have a thematically appropriate reading for you today to you'll find interesting. It is a book I haven't figured out how to fix yet. It is set on First of the Sun, the Sixth of the Dusk world. It is not the Sixth of the Dusk sequel. It's something else from that world that you have not even heard about. You've heard me say the title of it. It's called Kingmaker. But I've got like 2 chapters of that I can read. So we'll do that at 8:30. So we're going to start questions over there, and then we'll go back around. So go ahead.
Okay, so the word fluting comes up a lot in the Skyward books.
Yes.
I was wondering if there is ever a TV show or a movie. Would you like actual flutes to be used concerning that?
Maybe. Good question. So when I hear fluting, if you don't know, I like parrots as pets. And some parrots are good at vocalizing, other ones aren't. And if you know what they're saying, you can understand the word. But sometimes to an outsider, it just sounds like a squawk, right? And that's the fluting. I imagine it mostly being pronounced. But if you weren't paying close attention, you might just hear a flute noise. But if you know that the animal is imitating what you're saying, you can pick out what they're saying. Like my cockatiel says, "Beaker is a beautiful bird," but he says it, right? And so you kind of have to know. Magellan's better. Magellan is a macaw, so he could actually, he says, "dragon," and things like that. But so I imagine it like that. I imagine it would be synthesized. But maybe there's a flutist out there that can make their fluting sound like the tone and whatnot, and it would be appropriate if the repetition was just kind of an evocation of the word. Go ahead.
With the recent release of the Magic the Gathering Forgotten Realms set, have you given thought, or has Wizards floated the idea of a Cosmere type set?
Right. So I'm obviously in pretty regular contact with Wizards, having written a story for them and things like that. There's a lot of fans in-house. So I think that probably we will do these someday, but at the same time, they are still figuring out how to make this work with their fan base not rioting at them. Right? Some of the fan base does not like other IPs getting mixed in to Magic the Gathering, and so Wizards is figuring out how to do that. We have talked to them. Nothing's come of it yet, but I think it's probably inevitable. I don't know. I mean, they know how much I love their game, and a lot of them read my books. So I would imagine that someday we'll do it. At the very least, we'll do one of these secret lair things or something like that, but maybe something more. Like I would hold out for a full set like they're doing with Lord of the Rings or something, but they also are doing like commander decks themed to certain properties, which would be another really cool thing. So I imagine we would, but I can't, all I can say right now is we've all been like, hey, wouldn't that be cool? And that's as far as it's gotten. Over here.
You have talked about writing a book about Ashen, the first planet in the Rosharan system. You've said that they have a magic system based on disease,
yes,
but they are currently without a shard.
Yes.
Can you tell us what the source of that magic system is?
So a lot of the magic systems in the Cosmere, I kind of in my head differentiate kind of the primary worlds and the secondary worlds. And even on the secondary worlds, there is magic. And any place that a shard has been in presence is going to leave behind an after effect. But it's not always that. Like I would call most of the magic on Ashen cultivation-based, most likely. And cultivation's in the system, but has only briefly been to that planet. But it doesn't mean that, basically it's kind of the level of investiture. If you go to Scadrial, right? On Scadrial, you're going to have a high percentage of the population, cosmologically, that are going to have access to one of the hemalurgic arts, right? Same thing on Roshar. And indeed, people are going to be invested on a level that is beyond the others. And you know, this is my in-world canon reason. The people just don't come down with colds very often or have tooth decay very often and things like that. Like on the primary shard worlds, we're talking about people who are just naturally highly invested. All the other worlds, though, you're still going to have the occasional pop-up of magic here and there. You're still going to have effects of being in the Cosmere and things like that, just much smaller chances, and the magic's probably going to be less likely to be Earth planet-destroying potential and things like that, like happened on Ashen. So, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, hopping over here.
Hi, Brandon.
Hi.
I was wondering if you think Dalinar is redeemable, and if this question is too spoilery, I can ask another.
Ask a different one.
Okay. Do you believe that preservation is inherently good and that ruin is inherently evil?
No, good question. I would say no. I don't think any of the shards are inherently good or inherently evil. I think that ruin can be and was for many years in the Cosmere presented as the necessary force of progress, right? Things need to decay in order for life to exist. And I think entropy is just a necessary aspect of life. And ruin doesn't have to be evil, but ruin is hard to control. And odium is even harder to control, right? And because of that, there is a higher likelihood that ruin or odium are going to, if left unchecked, be very dangerous. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, you can get a Raffo card. Will someone bring me the Raffo cards? Thank you. They're coming up. They'll deliver one over here and then give the rest to me, or have a person up here deliver them. I guess I can't hand them out as easily. So that would be nice. Thank you. Is that Kellen? Hi. Yep. Kellen. She did the programming, I believe, at the convention here. So good job, Kellen. All right, go ahead.
So you've written a lot of viewpoints from a lot of different perspectives, and I assume there are at least some of those perspectives that you inherently disagree with on a personal level.
Yeah.
How has writing those perspectives changed you as a person?
So I view writing and reading as an innately empathetic process. One of the things that drove me to writing was how I felt like in reading stories I came to understand people different from myself better than I had before, and I find writing as means to explore the world. This is not to condone the actions of some people whose actions I think that I consider abhorrent and the general person should consider abhorrent, but I think empathy is like one of the most important key human skills or emotions. And I think it's part of why we exist, is to learn empathy. So I think books are empathy machines, and that's the way I approach them.
Schmiegel's baby is precious. But anyways, one of my dad's favorite sayings is, if you don't like where you're at, then leave. Has there been a time in your career when you were at a place that you felt could be very lucrative, but knew that you just had to leave?
Oh yeah, a couple of times. It's never been really that big of a deal. But you mentioned Lord of the Rings. I've talked about this before. There is a time where the Wheel of Time was in my hands, right? And there were certain people who came to me and said, what you need to do is pitch a 12-book series so that you never run out of Wheel of Time books to write, because these will be stable money makers for you for the rest of your life. Which, not to joke, like there are plenty of legacy series, so that's great. That's what the author intended and wanted and things like that. But I knew Robert Jordan really did not want that to happen. right? It's very easy to find the interviews with him where he talks about bulldozing his. There's that George Martin. Both of them hated having their hard drives, so they're going to wipe them or things like that. Like, don't want anybody. And Harriet has said multiple times he did not want his series to be a legacy series. And I believe that strongly, and so I always talk about it like letting go of the ring, right? Hey, Scar, you are here. Yes, Scar could totally take on a dragon. But I felt like I needed to let go of that ring. And it was such a relief when I did. Because there was a temptation to just keep going. And there's even like a not bad temptation to do so, right? Robert Jordan had talked about these other books he wanted to write. And they weren't a lot of notes for him, but I had those notes. And Harriet was like, what do you think? She actually sat me down and said, what do you think? Because the publisher really wants more. And I said, I don't think we should do it. And she said, I don't think we should do it either. I'm glad that you think that way. Kind of in this, she would have let me if I really had wanted to. And so I let go of the ring, and I turned it back in. Almost every other choice I've made, it's not been about lucrativeness versus my own integrity as an artist. It's been more about two good choices. Like, there are things I've turned down because I think that I will have more control over my career. One of the things that I've done is I've stopped taking big dumps of money from the publisher and instead have taken more control over the books. And that's just been one of my general themes over the last 10 years in my business is I don't want your big dumps of money. I don't want to be beholden to a contract. I just want the freedom to do whatever I want, right? This is what happened when I wrote the Wizard of the Coast story, which they called me and they offered me their dump truck of money was small, but it still was a small dump truck. And I said, I don't want your dump truck of money. I just want to write whatever I want. And I actually wrote it for free. Their lawyers made me take $1. Because, lawyers. But I just said, I just want to write. I got to get my fan fiction for Magic the Gathering out of my system. I don't want you guys interfering with what I'm going to write. Let me write whatever I want and then stamp your seal of approval on it and make sure I don't break your lore and then let me do that. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yes, really. And then I just wrote it for them. But that's about control over my desires to write whatever I want to write, if that makes any sense. I do love that one time someone online was like, these YA books, he only writes those for the money. He should write what he really wants to. Not understanding that the YA books earn less than the Stormlight books do. But I write them because I just want to write them, right? So, but I'm in a very privileged situation where whatever I write, I have enough money already, so it's not like I'm like giving up something huge by not taking the small dump truck of money from Wizard of the Coast because, the books sell really well. So I can just take a month off and write something as a fanfic and then get it stamped approval and then have them make cards based on it. And I geek out over that and still. Clapping for my nerding out over magic. If you do that, that'll encourage me, so don't. Yes.
Okay. Theoretically, with enough Stormlight, could a bondsmith bond a shard to something?
With enough investiture, yeah, that's viable. Yeah. Good question. Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering if there's going to be more like Rithmatist books.
Oh no! Oh no! Yeah, I will make good on the promise to have another Rithmatist book, at least one, eventually. But let's get Alcatraz 6 out. Haley's here, isn't she? Yeah, Haley's here. Haley's working on Alcatraz 6, which is the last Alcatraz book that we've had a lot of trouble getting done. Jancy wrote half of it. Hi, Jancy. Oh, she might be in the dealer's hall. No, she's right here. Jancy, hey. That should come out soon, next year, do we think? Something like that. They've been telling me next year for 3 years at Tor, but they finally sent us money. By the way, we got money, Jancy. I don't know if you got your money. I got some money. Alcatraz money is not very big, but we got some. So that means that we actually have a contract and things. So hopefully that is happening pretty soon. That'll be the last of the 3 before Wheel of Time things that I was writing that are still kind of looming over me. That was Legion, Alcatraz, and Rhythmatis. So that'll be 2 of them knocked down. And Rhythmatis will be the last of the 3. And I do mean to make good on that. But I'm not sure when. It's taken way longer to get Alcatraz finished than I thought. But it will happen.
Well, my question was about Alcatraz and when that was coming out. So,
Yeah.
so.
Well, thank you for asking about that. It is coming. Haley's working on the art. We have a contract. It's like real. And I mean, the book is done and it's great. Jancy just finished last set of revisions with the new editor at Tor, I believe. I saw that email go through. So yeah. Anyway, let's go over here.
Is Hoyd's hair naturally white, and does that mean anything?
It is now. I don't know what you call naturally, but
Can I rephrase then?
What's that?
Can I rephrase then?
Yes, you can.
Was he born with white hair?
He was not born with white hair.
So my favorite word is viscosity.
Yeah,
It's a
viscosity's a good word.
It's like a word you can really
Yeah.
puke to. It's great.
Yeah.
So I want to know what your favorite word and or phrase is.
See, it used to be maladroitly until everyone pointed that out to me, and now I hate it. So it's all your fault. No, it's my fault. I really like, let's see. What's a word that I really like? I really like the word miasmic. In fact, miasmic is the word that I wrote into a manuscript, and my editor circled it. This is motion. He said, "Brandon, you can't be Gene Wolfe for just one sentence." It was miasmic that I had written. I'm like, this is the right word. It's not me trying to put on airs. This is the actual word I want to use, and I think you let me keep it. But I've always remembered that sentence. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey, so you've given a lot of good advice for beginning authors tonight. My stepson, who's 13, he's been writing for a few years, and I'm sure there's a lot of other kids in his situation. What one thing would you tell them?
I would tell him that the product of your time spent writing is not the book. The book is a nice side effect of spending time writing. The product of your time writing is you being a better writer. You leveling up by writing that book. And a happy coincidence is that you end up with a story that you could share with people. But particularly when you're newer, your main goal is leveling up as a writer. And whatever writing you will do that makes you level up is the writing you want to be doing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hi. So obviously you're known for these big expansive worlds or universes like the Cosmere. How do you write new books in an existing world, so second, third, 10th, whatever, books in an existing world and still keep the story and the world interesting?
Excellent question. So I've got 2 general archetypes for this. The first one is the planned giant world. Most of the things I've done that are very big, or even just a trilogy, I have from the get-go baked into it, so to speak, ways to expand the story, because I know that if I don't have new interesting setting elements to deal with in each book, that I will get bored of the series, and that's a bad thing. And so, for instance, when I built Mistborn, I didn't need a ton of this, but I made sure that I didn't go too deeply into feruchemy in the first book and left the explanations of feruchemy for the next book, and didn't go too deeply into hemalurgy in either one so that I could dig into it in the next book. And then for the next era of Mistborn, I just made sure that I had something else to play with. In this case, the difference between a Misting and a full Mistborn and how those interactions work. So it's the idea is building into it, saying what's going to be new and interesting for me to discover in the next book. And a lot of times, I didn't do this for Mistborn as much, but I did it for Skyward, is I write the first book, and then I ask myself that question, and I build the outline. containing these things already, and then go back to the first book and make sure that the foreshadowing for the rest of that is there, so that as I expand to these other things, it feels like a natural outgrowth rather than just me adding things. But the other archetype is just me adding things. This is really only did I do with Alcatraz, which I Discovery wrote that series. And the idea for that one was I built into it, it's very easy to add new powers, and we will deal with those new powers, and we'll have a few new ones in each book. If you haven't read them, we meet new family members who each have their own ways of interacting with the world and their own magic, and we get new magical lenses, and we just kind of do it that way so that it's like the X-Men, right? It's theoretically infinite, the number of cool different X-Men things you could do. And I tend to do this, though, with character as well. When I'm building a series like Skyward, I'm like, all right, I want the character's arc. I want to have an arc in each book. I want them to feel natural. I want to make sure that I'm not doing this thing where I'm resetting the character arc each book. That really bugs me. Number one pet peeve is when character goes through a long journey. Like, you guys watch the first season of Lost? Right? And then there's Charlie, and then at the beginning of the second season, I'm like, we don't know what to do with him. What if he had the same journey again? Wow, that's genius. And then they just reset. I'm exaggerating, but it really, really bugs me, so I'm going to exaggerate when people do it. I don't like that. So instead, I try to say, okay, what is a natural arc, and how I want to make sure that it lasts the scope of the series, which means people always have new challenges in life. If you can always find a way to punch a character where they aren't expecting it and have them grow, it does get too much if you go too long, but for me, I found that it works pretty well to plan it out ahead of time. So there you go. Long-winded answer to your question. Hopefully it's helpful. Yeah, go ahead. And let's go ahead and say you're welcome to have clap for all the questions so that you don't feel like you have to clap for each one. So thumbs up.
So one of my favorite things about the Cosmere is like the mixture of science with magic. And so I was theorizing on ways you could do like the space travel with spaceships between planets. So my theory is that we know ways that you can store investiture in things. We know ways you can like shield that as well. So thinking if you put like super invested object at the front of your ship and opened it up, potentially creating a perpendicularity to put the whole ship into the cognitive realm.
Very interesting theory, Raffo. Very interesting theory. I like that theory a lot. You got your Raffo card. I really like that you can theorize along these lines. And not to say too much, but people have been able to figure out how I'm going to do it because the fundamentals of the magic are there, and that just tickles me. It makes me excited. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, in Bands of Mourning, in the party scene.
Yes.
Hoyd was outside, talked
Yes.
with Wax. Chris is inside, talked with Wax. Were there any other world hoppers present, and if so, how many?
At least one was present, probably two. So, at least one, probably two. Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm. Yep. Fun times.
So, my question for you is more about writing. And you could have two authors that have both been writing for the same amount of time. One of them will make it big, will sell millions of books. One of them will stay in obscurity.
Yes.
For you and your personal story, what do you feel has separated you in like being in the upper echelon of writers versus people that stay in obscurity?
Luck. We laugh, but it's seriously true. So part of that luck is that what I naturally like to write is naturally something that people really like to read. It's less niche. I've got friends who are genius writers, but a lot of what they write is a little more niche. Niche? Yeah, oh no, we're going to start an argument. There is that aspect, right? I got lucky in that what I wanted to do was a big, expansive, interconnected universe. Started 2 years before that became the vogue hot thing. with the MCU coming out 2 years after. And suddenly, that became exciting, and it was something that people wanted, when before that, it was something that publishers didn't want you to do, and I was kind of in trouble for doing, right? Tom Doherty did not like that I was doing this. He just wanted me to write one series with the same characters like had always worked before. I just happened to be that, what I wanted to do happened to work. Whims of fate, one of the things you have to be really careful about in this business is survivorship bias, right? And this happens with any field with someone successful. To explain survivorship bias, imagine that we had a coin flipping championship right here, and we all flipped coins, but we didn't know it was random, the results, and we flipped until somebody, the last person who flipped only heads. And then that person, if you didn't know it was random, you might go to them and be like, all right, what's your strategy? How do we do this? And I wouldn't say that there's nothing that I do that has contributed to my success. Certainly, having good habits, right? Good habits have been very helpful for me compared to some of my contemporaries in that I've learned my writing process and I'm very consistent. But I know people who are very consistent and write books as good as me who do not have my level of success and deserve to have more. And so the only thing I can determine is I have been lucky in various different ways. And so I try to make the best of it by doing well with the fact that people like and enjoy my books, and I try to make good on it, right? So, but there you go. I really do think that is one of the biggest dividing features. I wish it weren't so, right? I wish I could tell you, oh, here's the thing that I do that nobody else does, and that's why I'm the #1 best-selling fantasy novelist, but I really can't honestly tell you that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Now you're like, oh, no, he told us not to clap. Should we clap? I really want to clap for that. I don't care if you clap. I'm just giving you permission to not clap. How about that? Now someone claps for that. Oh, no. Oh, no. It's getting even more complicated. All right, go ahead.
All right. Galactic monopolies on faster-than-light travel and the societal implications of instantaneous transportation are major thematic elements of both the Skyward series and Howard Taylor's Schlock Mercenary.
Oh, I was going to say Dune.
Oh, okay. I know that you're friends with Howard. Did his work have any influence on how
definitely.
you view this?
Yes. I hadn't thought of that, but I bet that there's some of that in there. But I bet we're both influenced by Dune, just like everyone else, right? Like I can directly say, monopoly on intergalactic travel is a question that I found really interesting and is something that I'm deeply influenced by Dune by. But yes, I would say that there's definitely some Howard in there influencing me. I mean, his is the space opera that I probably spent the longest amount of my life reading, right? Schlock Mercenary, so yeah. If you guys haven't read Schlock Mercenary, it's great. The art gets better if you start at the beginning. He would say that too.
So, jumping off of what you were talking about earlier, about always being excited about your next project, also knowing that you have quite a few things already planned ahead. You're a very busy individual. You have your work cut out for you that everybody is well aware of. What are some projects that have come up that you were really excited about but really just cannot fit into your schedule and had to pass on?
So Eidos wanted me to work on their new video game IP. They just released some first glimpses at it. It's a fantasy IP. And a lot of people wrote to me and said, wow, this feels kind of like Mistborn. I'm like, yeah, it kind of does. Because they came to me and said, this feels like something you would really like. Would you be interested in writing our lore? And that would have been really cool. But I had to say no because I'd already just picked up a video game project that I can't still even announce. But that was one of 3 video game projects I was offered in a row. And I had to say no to the second 2 because I said yes to the first one. So that has happened to me. I do get tell me this. This one's kind of weird. I get every other week, I'm exaggerating, but a lot of requests of, do you know these these mobile games that are woman in college has to choose between 2 guys. Do you pick this one or that one? Right? Those clones of that come to me every week and say, can we base these on your books? And I am baffled. I have no idea. They're usually Chinese companies, and I have no idea. But we just say, no, this does not seem like something. But we get a ton of those. That's neither here nor there. But the sort of things we get emails about, would you like to do this? And we're like, have you read my books? What's going on? But we do get a lot of requests like that. I get nothing that's been really tempting for me except the Eidos thing, and then other books that I want to write in my head that I just can't.
That's
right?
one of the areas I was thinking too.
What's that?
That was one of the areas I was thinking too, just like great ideas
Yeah.
that you might have that like,
Yep, great ideas. Yeah, you can listen to my podcast with me and Dan, and every couple of weeks I'll come up with one, and then that I can't write that we'll talk
Burrito
about.
World.
What's that?
Burrito World.
Burrito World. Yep, Burrito World. All right, over here.
Hey, I didn't see you around the convention. It's really sad. You missed out on the opportunity to meet me.
I know. I was waiting in line. Your line is just too big.
I know. So, I originally wanted to ask a question that bamboozle you so I could get one of your like fancy golden tickets. But
Right. Yep. They're blue now, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sad to say that's not what I'm going for here.
Okay.
When you have like a concept as vague as the cosmos and it's almost uncomprehendable and your mind is just so full of thoughts and ideas and different things, how are you able to organize them and put them down together on paper, whether in a book or something like that?
That's a really good question. Very insightful. For me, the key is making that story about someone living in that place. You can have all the cool things in the world and they can get overwhelming, but if you ask yourself, this person having a personal conflict that is either between them and their society or them and the world around them, the physical world around them, or between them and somebody they love, that person's conflict. How can I see what parts of this giant thing can I see through that person's eyes? What parts are relevant to their conflict and tell that story? And then worry about the other pieces when it's relevant to seeing the world through other people's eyes and tell those stories. And then eventually these things will coalesce into something larger. But if you don't tell a human story about an individual, or I should say sapient, a story about a being who wants something, right? If you're not going to do that, if you're not going to tell one of those stories, it's not going to click with us, and we're not going to care about the universe you've created unless people that we're reading about care about it, if that makes sense. So that's the key for me.
So, do you get trick-or-treaters at your house who dress as characters from your books?
All the time. Oh, man. I can tell you stories. So it like showing up to someone's author's house, you know where he lives, showing up just any day is kind of weird, right? But there's a day in the year where you're allowed to do that, no matter how old you are. And it's particularly okay if you have kids. You can dress up like characters from the books. So yes, I get a lot. It kind of puts a bit of a burden on us because not a bad burden. I like it, right? But it means that we kind of we try to do something a little better than just answer the door and whatnot. So my kids came up with this whole thing this year. It was a whole rigmarole where they built they conceived and I had to build like a little mini obstacle course that was crossing the River Styx because I was dressed as Hades. And one of them stood there in a Karen outfit going, I'm like, he takes them across. He's like, I'm scary. And we gave them gold coins to get across the River Styx and things like that. So that, our trick-or-treating is a little more interesting than just whatever. But it gives me a chance to chat with people and things like that. This is not permission for you to all to come to my house. I can't get through you all through. But I will tell you, about 2 years ago, Dallin, my middle son, who was running around yesterday telling everyone he invented Boom Slug, which he did. A couple years ago, I set out some books, and because I knew some people were coming that were friends of friends who were going to come in costume. I'm like, when they come, we're going to give them these books. And he thought anyone who was dressed as one of my characters got a book, so we started handing them out. And then he thought anyone who comes really deserves a book. so he went outside and I'm going off on how cute my kids are, but I've got the microphone. So Dallin, he has a real trouble on Halloween because he's a spooky kid. He likes spooky stuff. And he likes scaring people, and this is the only day of year you can do it. So it's like, do I go get candy or do I scare people, right? And scare people actually wins, which is really remarkable for a kid who was 9, 10, and 11 these last 3 years. He will dress up as a zombie or something, and he'll lay on the front porch dead and twitching, and people come up and he'll be like, rah! And he just loves it. But so he was out there, and he'd go, rah! By the way, we have books if you want one. Yeah. So he was a librarian zombie, and he gave away all the author copies of Alcatraz that we'd been sent. So it was fine, but we ran out of them really fast. And this year, someone came and said, I hear you give out books at Halloween. I'm like, oh, no. No, we did that 1 year on accident. So there you go. Go ahead.
So I have one you might not want to answer, but I'm very curious. I think hemalurgy is one of the most interesting systems you've really come up with, especially for the future of the Cosmere. Can you give us anything new that we do not know about hemalurgy? As just kind of like a little fun thing?
There will be something new in Lost Metal.
All right.
So
can
there you go.
Can I ask a little bit bigger question for you to answer real quick?
Yes.
For Wheel of Time.
Yes.
If you had to pick any of the shards that we know, which characters would get what shards from the Wheel of Time?
Let's give Moiraine ambition. That would be great. Better than Swan, right? Moiraine will be more responsible. Maybe.
Hi, sorry. So I apologize in advance for asking this. I'm very, very, very sorry for asking this. But understanding that your personal tragedy is all about me or us here, should the unspeakable happen?
Yes, and I pass away. Who's going to finish my books?
Yes.
Yes. Don't worry. That's not. You don't have to feel bad. I finished someone's book when they passed away.
Sorry.
So it's totally okay.
You have a
I don't consider
perpendicularity
that
with the
morbid.
spiritual realm?
No, yeah, I'll be in the spiritual realm watching and being like, yeah, you did a good job. I often Brian, are you here? I often say Brian McClellan, poor guy. He was here earlier. Oh, he had to leave. He texted me. So I can say, I've often said Brian. I don't know who it would actually be. It would probably be my team deciding who it was in the moment, like Harriet decided. I would totally want, at this point, them to be, at least the Stormlight Archive to be finished. We're far enough along that it should be. And so definitely that. I don't know if I would dive into have them dive into the rest of Mistborn, but maybe. It depends on, as I get older, I want to make sure that I'm doing a good job of leaving outlines so that if the unspeakable does happen, they don't have to do what I had to do with Wheel of Time, which was a lot. So we'll see. Hopefully it won't come up.
Good to hear you're back at the gym.
That's it. Go back to the gym. I am back to the gym. Gym's open. So yeah. Go ahead.
Is there a character from any of your books that you've enjoyed developing the most?
Steris. I really enjoyed developing Steris, yeah. Oh, people like Steris. Steris is one of those that I wrote, and I knew, I'm like, I'm going to be so sneaky with this character. And then Steris worked, and people came to really love Steris. And it was really fulfilling to me because this is the sort of thing that I love when authors can do. And the person who's best at it, honestly, is George Martin. But he does it by kicking you repeatedly in the face. And I wanted to try to do something similar where you don't like a character and then come to love them without the face kicking part. And I feel very gratified to have been able to do that. Go ahead.
So please stop me if this is too spoilery.
Okay.
But I have a question about the different races on Roshar.
Okay.
So I believe that you can reasonably assume that humans and Parshendi at some time mixed, resulting in Horn Eaters with their red hair and hearty stomachs, Herodasians with their fingernails, and Thalens with their eyebrows, maybe. I don't know about that one. Anyway, but however, Aeamians, like Axes the Collector, have blue changeable skin.
Yes.
And this doesn't seem like a Parshendi trait at all.
It is not.
So, is it possible that there was another race welcomed onto the planet like humans were?
Rapho, So yeah. So good. There's your Raffo card. So
Thank
yes.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Brandon.
Hi.
I have a little question here. If you could only say positive things and nothing negative, how would you describe the current characteristics and character of Moash?
And there you go.
Hi. Do you ever reread your own books?
Do I reread my own books? So I only have to reread the bigger series when I'm writing a new book in that series. So, for instance, before I wrote Rhythm of War, I reread Way of Kings. I will reread Words of Radiance before I write the next one. They're getting a little bit too far back. So I'll probably be doing that in January. Usually I don't need to. But the further it gets, the more mistakes I make. And the more mistakes I make, the harder Karen's job is. And to a lesser extent, Peter's. And so, you know, it is good for me to keep these things in mind. So, but then I read them and I'm like, oh, here's all these things I wish I would have changed, right? Like, oh man, Way of Kings had way too many metaphors relating to animals that don't actually really exist on Roshar. Like that sort of thing. You know, you just get better at doing this so as you write the series. But anyway, so yes, I do, but I don't have to do it too often. If I have to reread the whole series before I could write a new one, then it might take even longer to get to Stormlight books.
So apparently my question builds off someone else's question, but my question is, if you've been having success writing books with other authors, as you've had in this,
Yes.
Is that a strategy you might use to write sequels to Rhythmatist?
So it is something we've considered with Rhythmatist, yeah. What would be really nice is if I'm adding a co-author, getting somebody who has Aztec heritage, because I wanted to write the next one taking place in dealing with kind of some Aztec lore and things like that would be really cool. So that's kind of what we've been looking for, if we can find somebody who at least has some understanding of, you know, some Mexican heritage and things like that, or whatnot, or a scholar of that. So that is probably where we're going to go when we do it. We just have to find the right person. So that's what we're looking out for. So if you know anyone, if you know writers that you really like, you can send me emails about who I should look into. Mm-hmm. Okay, go back over here.
So, how do you think pushing and pulling on liquid metals would work?
It would work, but it'd be messy.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, it would definitely work. You could do it. In fact, you can find all kinds of things with ferrofluids and whatnot that would show you kind of how it would work. I visualize it working similar to some of those things, where you get some of those pretty cool patterns of the liquid and whatnot, though not exactly the same, because they're not going to work exactly like ferrofluids, because ferrofluids tend to have suspended particles. Anyway, it's different, but things like that I think will be very fun, and I imagine trying to find ways to use that more in the future. So, good question. Go ahead.
Hey, Gancho. Okay, so...
Hey, Gancho.
If you could pick 5 places from your stories to visit for vacation, which would those be, and who would you bring as your +1? What from your stories as a character?
Yeah, as from my stories as a character. Okay, so I can't bring my wife. That would be
Correct.
the actual answer, right?
I know, that's right.
Oh, who am I going to bring as a +1? Who's the most powerful person who could keep me alive and out of trouble? What's that? Vin? I was thinking more like, shard level, right? Right? Like, if I can bring anyone, I'm bringing a shard around to keep me, but so I want someone pretty stable. So maybe cultivation should be a good choice. And so where would I go? Probably depends. Like, do I have to be locked into, like, if I can go space age, because we have done Six to the Dusk, then, then things get better because there are places that are more happy to visit. Most of the places I have written books in, you don't want to visit because that's where conflict is happening. So I'll pick Silverlight, I'll pick First of the Sun, I'll pick Scadrial, and I'll pick.
Sorry, may I clarify? I wanted to know about specific places, not like the planet.
Well, okay, Silverlight's a city, so that counts.
Yeah.
We're going to this will go too long, so I'll just give you two. I'll go Silverlight, and where would I actually go? I would just go to the center of the Home Isles on First of the Sun. It sounds like a fun place to visit, very relaxing. They've got, it's like going to Hawaii, except there are magic birds, so, and it's not, if you stay on the Home Isles, it's not too dangerous, so that's where I go.
Thanks, Gancho.
Mm-hmm.
So I know no one's gonna like this, but what do doom slugs taste like?
They taste like knowing you're a terrible person. All right, we got 14 minutes left, so just warning you, we're probably only going to get through a couple more from each line, if that many. Just fair warning up front.
If you had a non-spoiler, non-raffle question that you could ask yourself, what would it be and what would the answer be?
Can I have a cookie? Yes. You left yourself open for that one. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm sure this is the most important question of this whole day. What noise does Doomslug make?
What noise does Doomslug make? You can go talk to the Doomslug, the giant inflatable Doomslug. She does a very good Doomslug. It's like a high-pitched, it sounds a little like a flute, but not entirely like a flute, and imitates a human voice.
Wow.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, my question has to do with detritus.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, how do the people on detritus breathe?
How do the people on detritus breathe? It has an atmosphere. So by building of detritus requires how do the oxygen get recycled? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, like they have no plants. And
they do have so here's the thing. It has an alien, lots of alien fungus that works like an algae. This is what the rats are living on, so what the slugs are living on, and things like that. And so the air is recycled naturally, but we don't see most of the plants that are creating oxygen on our planet. It's the same way with them. So even the lichen and things that she's mistaking for dust and whatnot is helping the planet to maintain an oxygen cycle. Good question. But that is also why there's rats in the caverns. And a lot of these are surviving geothermally. So, yeah. It's alien. It works, but because I says so. Peter wonders the same questions, and I give him the same answers.
So when you were writing Skyward, did you ever change Spence's name? And if so, what were some, of her previous...
I kind of just started with Spensa. And so I don't imagine that there was anything. I'm trying to remember. I don't think there was anything else. Before that, it was just Nebulous, and I was using nicknames for her. So, there we are.
So, in your books, you have some pretty powerful healing magics, and we've also seen some characters sustain some pretty traumatic brain injuries.
Yes.
The human brain stores information with electrical connections, right?
It does.
And so if you blew a part of it out, you could grow it all back, but those connections wouldn't really be there. Have you considered that?
I have.
Okay.
This is why you will see memory. So, cognitive shadows maintain a person's memory. And your cognitive aspect, your invested self, maintains your memory in the Cosmere. This is why you will often see people's memory being edited by accessing some of the investiture. So you'll see this in Warbreaker. You saw this in the end of Rhythm of War. Your cognitive self, your invested self, keeps a duplicate of all your memories. So this allows very significant trauma to the physical sense. As long as the cognitive sense is still attached to that body, those memories will be reimplanted in the physical self or will be accessed. And this was just necessary for me to even have things like what happened with Raoden in the beginning of Elantris, and for ghosts to exist and things like that. And so it actually it works pretty well because it lets me use it to edit people's memories by accessing their investiture. And it's one of the other things that's going on here is if you have more investiture, you can remember more and better. But then that's dangerous because it is a lot easier to access that investiture, and it's a lot harder to notice when it has been edited.
So you've written about like a lot of cultures that have some parallels to the real world. Do you have any like culture or magic system you've kicked around that's inspired by the Indian subcontinent?
I do, actually. Thank you for this question. You should be very interested to read The Lost Metal. There's a world hopper on the Lost Metal from a planet with culture inspired by the Indian subcontinent. So, yes. And I have had a lot of help. Where is Kalyani here and Raul? Yes, they've been helping me quite a bit with that. So they get some applause. So, all right, let's go over here.
So I was just wondering, should Stormlight ever reach the film stage or TV series? Would you consider using the Black Piper Kaladin album as its soundtrack?
I would consider it. It would really be up to the people who are making it, but that's definitely something to consider. It's a very good album. So there we go. Claps for Black Piper.
Is the reason arithmetist can draw Mark's cross because the lines of forbiddance become like two-dimensional and become part of the circle?
That's kind of it, but kind of not at the same time. So yes and no.
To speed things along, I'm going to forestall my question, but your opening speech about doing what's hard means I can't sit down because I have a quick statement. I know a con and doing things this big is not easy, and I have a lot of respect for Dragonsteel before this. Seeing your crew and how they've interacted with all of us and your fan base, I went from having the highest regards for Dragonsteel as a whole to way beyond the stars, and absolutely love your crew more than I ever thought possible, and I'm so proud to be a fan amongst all of these and to represent you.
Oh, well, thank you. I've been saying all weekend that this is their fault, the team's fault because they want to do that, but I mean that also in the most laudatory way, right? I can't take responsibility for this. They did it. So those applause are really for them. They put it together, and I've been very impressed as well. All right.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
So, I know that through videos you've said that you've had Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood suggested to you to watch. And so I'm not going to ask that, of course, because I know the answer.
Yes.
But have you had One Piece suggested to you since it's much closer to Terry Pratchett in anime?
I have had One Piece suggested to me as well. But a lot of people say I should read the manga as opposed to see the anime of that. Would you agree with that? What's that?
As long as you don't watch the dub.
Okay, don't watch the dub. The anime's okay. All right.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Okay. Okay. How's the Cowboy Bebop live action? Oh boy, that's a lot of groans. Okay. I haven't dared watch it yet. I'm going to give it at least an episode, but yeah. All right.
Okay, so first, you might want to look into extreme haunts for Dallin. Sounds like he would love them.
The what?
Extreme haunts. They're haunted houses kicked up a couple of steps.
Okay.
I don't know if they're
Yeah.
in Utah, but I know California has a lot.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
I'm in New
Dallin
Hampshire.
is like when they had the zombie hunting stuff with the paintballs. He wanted to go until he found out you couldn't be the zombie.
Yes.
And then he was not interested. So I fully expect him to be working at some of these before too long. Soon as they will hire him.
Okay. So the question, completely unrelated to anything you've done, a little closer to the last question. Have you watched Gravity Falls?
I have not watched Gravity Falls. I'm sorry.
It is 61 episodes, consistent character growth throughout. It was pre-planned ahead of time. It's wonderful.
I have heard that. I have heard that it's very good. So, all right. You're the first person to actually recommend it specifically to me. So I will take that recommendation to heart. It might have to go after Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I still haven't watched. Yeah, I know. But the Avatar one's a meme now, so it's almost like I can't watch it without ruining the meme. So maybe I'll have to watch Gravity Falls. Oh no, I'm getting booed. Okay, better stay away from that topic. It's a sensitive. We could talk politics, but don't talk about not watching Avatar.
So some of my favorite things about your books is how well the science is blended with the magic and just the nature of the worlds, as other people have mentioned. And I'm curious about how much research goes into every book. I know you mentioned like talking to fighter pilots and stuff for the like the Cytoverse.
We've got one here. Where is our fighter pilot? Hey! He gave me a challenge coin. I love these things. It's my second challenge coin of the day, though. I got 2 challenge coins today. See, I got another one. Woo! It's shaped like Texas. So that was pretty cool. Anyway, go ahead. You were just was there other ones? Was the question?
My question was about what kind of research goes into your books.
So it really depends on the book, right? Okay. And it depends on my own comfortability with the source or with the thing I'm trying to do. Like there are some places I'm pretty good at on my own, right? Done a lot of research into human psychology and things like that, and I've done a decent research into chemistry, but once we get into the deep physics and things like that, then I need to rely on my writing group, which has 2 physicists in it, which is really handy, and so even a physics teacher. Eric, is Eric here? Would you count yourself as a physicist, Eric? No, would you? I count you as a physicist. Okay, we have a physicist and Eric, who is a generalist science genius. And so having them in the writing group is really handy for me. But when we get into lived experience, that's where I want to make sure. Like I want to talk to people who have lived with certain things. So anytime I'm doing something that I feel like I need to know the experience of someone who's actually lived through it, I'm going to search for that because I'm in a position where I can find those people and get the answers I need. But fortunately, I have, like I said, a generalist scientist, a computer dude, a soldier, and a physicist in my writing group, which is really handy. They're a good bunch. And then we have a mathematician, but we ignore him because who cares about that? No, that's why you see Professor Layton show up in Arithmetist. That's Alan, my mathematician friend. So I've got a mathematician to give me good jokes for pattern to use. So he has contributed quite a bit. I just like to joke with Alan. So, but yeah, I'm going to look basically for anything, but lived experience is the most useful to me. So I'll do cursory research on basically any topic. I'll only do a deep dive if I really feel I need it, but I will always look for somebody with lived experience if I can find them.
Well, if you ever need somebody who knows far too much about algae.
Okay. That's, you know. Yeah, that comes up.
Yeah.
You would be surprised. Yeah. So, all right. So let's see. Where are we? We are at 8:30. So I'm going to say sorry to those in line. You waited a long time and I didn't get to your question, so I feel awful. But I apologize. We can't get to everyone because they will kick us out. because I'm going to need to go sign some books for people. Those who are getting books, that does mean you can sit down if you were waiting. I am sorry. Yes, you get clapped for. I'm sorry.